You may have some questions, or may not. You may not. So we could start out while I'm looking for something. If there's any questions about anything, doesn't have to relate necessarily to trumpet or music, but whatever. Just feel free to jump in. I want to try and keep it casual.
Good question.
Oh yeah.
You talked about like sort of starting in like definitely like played a lot of classical music and definitely was into jazz and started going into jazz and sort of basically playing different styles of music and putting yourself out there in all those circumstances. But like, I guess I don't know. It's a little bit. But like, how did you sort of gain direction in a specific like what you wanted to do? Like through like I'm sure there's a point when you were playing this gig and this gig and this gig and like playing lots of different gigs, but was there a time when you started saying, you know, this is what I want to do, or I'm going to like push this stuff away and concentrate on that stuff, or like how did that go about happening, or did it go about happening?
It's still happening. No, it's amazing, you know, how time flies, but I mean, I didn't necessarily want to get involved in playing in all these big bands in my life. I mean, it just one thing kind of leads to the next in this business. When I was first starting out in New York playing jazz with a small group, I mean, that's kind of what I wanted to do. It just happened that, you know, in university settings, that's what happens. You know, you end up playing in big bands, right? And you start learning that repertoire, and just through who you know, in order to work as a musician, you take whatever gigs come along early on. And a lot of times for us brass players, a lot of the work that we do, we find in playing in large ensembles, big bands, man. So I didn't really choose that as much as that it chose me by the simple fact that I played trumpet and I knew the styles and the repertoire. So I ended up getting called to do a lot of big band gigs, and then 10 years went by, and I've been on the road and doing stuff, and I've had different groups over the years, and I think there's a lot of directions that I could go in. It's just it's always trying to figure out which way you want to go. So I made a conscious decision a few years ago to try and get back into more of the solo thing and more small group stuff, just because I said, hey man, all these years I've been doing this, I was like, I never really wanted to spend my life on the road with big bands. I was like, wait a second, and I gotta, so I had to reshift my priorities and go back to writing and trying to record small group stuff. So work is work, and so that but at some point, you have to ask yourself, is that really what I want to do or not? So, so in the last couple of years, I've been trying to reassess what it is that I want to do with the second half of my life, musically. So I'm kind of still torn between, I'd love to have my own big band with cats, but financially at this point, it's a little bit hard to do, to take even 10 a big band with only 10 guys, with only 2 trumpets and 1 bone and 2 saxophones, like Maynard's band. I mean, it's expensive, not let alone taking like a 16-piece band on the road. The other thing that I'm interested in doing is creating. I've been writing orchestral pops stuff similar to what Doc Severinsen did for years and years, and now Jeff Tyzik does. So I'm going in and playing my medleys of Louis Armstrong tunes and some ballads that I've arranged. It's basically jazz trio and orchestra. There's that, plus then, I'm still interested in doing like a fusion record, rock and roll, jazz, hip hop, fusion, hardcore, heavy metal meets trumpet kind of thing. So it's I don't know, man, if I'm answering your question at all, but I mean,
no, definitely.
The question
it was
is
all those issues that sort of.
Those issues are constant. I mean, I don't think there's anybody alive that isn't constantly reassessing what it is that they want to do while they're on this planet. So it's but at the same, so the same token, you know, once you choose to be a musician, for a while you kind of just have to do what there is to do, you know, unless you're really fortunate early on to find yourself in a situation where you're doing exactly what it is that you want to do from an early age. Like, you know, my friend Eldar, who's only 21 or something like that, and he's already got a trio or a quartet contract with I think Blue Note or Sony. I think it's Sony. He's a child prodigy from Russia. He came over to the States when he was like 12. And so, you know, there's rare cases where people just, you know, all of a sudden start doing what they want to do. But in the music business, you end up having to go, you travel around and eventually you find where you're happy. It's not like I don't enjoy playing with big bands on the road. I just, I've done it so much that it's not my first choice for things to do. I was telling somebody yesterday that, I don't know, with any of you in the morning class with the orchestra and brass? Yeah, okay. So anyway, we were talking about that a little bit, but all sound concepts come from inside your head, you know, basically. So you have to kind of imagine the sound that you want to produce, and just by doing that, your body will go through physiological changes. So part of the battle is, you know, just imagining a sound. So it starts kind of like, you know, if you listen to like Adolf Herseth or Phil Smith, and you hear a really great orchestral trumpet sound that you can imagine yourself producing. For me, you know, listening to Lewis and some orchestral stuff, the Berlin Philharmonic guys, I had the brass sound in my head. But it wasn't until I heard like Maynard, and then especially Freddie Hubbard. And Freddie Hubbard's, he loved Maynard too. So, and Freddie, those early recordings, he's playing with a huge, beautiful, rich trumpet sound. And so I used to listen to that with the headphones plastered onto my head, and you know, it just really ingrained itself into my subconscious. So, you know, with trombone players, you may dig, you know, Conrad Herwig, or you might rather listen to Wycliffe, or, you know, there's a million guys out there, and you might listen to the great orchestral trombone players, Alessi and those guys. So it's just a matter of, you know, trying to find a sound that you like, whether it's somebody you hear live or on recording, or just something that you hear in your head. So it's just a matter of doing that. I don't think that we should think too much. A lot of times people think too much about, am I doing this right? Am I doing this right? Am I doing this wrong? And get hung up in trying to analyze their embouchure too much and what's happening. The best thing to do is kind of get back to just a simplistic approach, you know, in developing your own sounds. And do we have other people here? Oh, okay. You guys aren't brass players though, right?
No.
Oh, okay, that's cool. Anyway, so that's true with any instrument, really. Yesterday I picked up I think I played 5 different trumpets, you know, and I sounded virtually the same on all of them, just because I have everybody's got their individual setup, different mouth cavity sizes and different lung capacities, different vibration of your skull. Some people have thicker skulls, obviously, than others, and that all plays a part in the resonance of the brass instrument, you know.